Greetings. Today at Black Fact Central. Doing it again. Got to do our thing. It's noon time with Doc Ock at noon and 9. Hope everybody's out there feeling really fine. Doing your thing on the job, but taking a little break just for a minute. Just take a little pressure off. That's all we're here to do. Just to take a little bit of pressure off your minds. Give your mind a break. Think about something else for a while. Reset. That's always good, so you can come back fresh after lunch. You can come back fresh, be able to refocus, carry on through the rest of the day, because guess what? It's all downhill from here. It's all downhill. So let's see what we have a proverb for today. Got something good for you, an original proverb. On the 8th day, Doc Ock said, sometimes you have to loosen the reins to control your horse. Sometimes you have to loosen your reins to control your horse. Very simple. I'll let you ruminate on that one for a while. Meanwhile, we're on our way to the 9th town of ghosts. We were in the 7th town of ghosts, you recall? I think that was the town of the burglar ghost. Then we went to the 8th town of ghosts. That was the one where he got married. That might have been the burglar ghost. I forget what. Oh, the 7th town was the 7th town of smelling ghosts. The 7th town of smelling ghosts. And we went to burglar ghosts. Now we're on the way to the 9th town of ghosts. Let's see who lives in the 9th town of ghosts. As I left the town of my wife's father late in the evening, the town which is the 8th town of ghosts, in which I was baptized with fire and hot water. So I traveled from bush to bush till a late hour in the night. Perhaps I would see the way of my hometown. But when I believed that I could not see it, or I could not reach the 9th town of ghosts on that night, then I stopped under a tree and climbed to the top. I laid down on its branch, which had plenty of leaves that covered me as a cloth from the cold of that night, and also from the wind which was blowing the tree to and fro with dew which was dropping as light rain on everything on the ground. But as I was troubled too much on the way to this tree by the ghost children, because I was very curious to them, so it was not more than 5 minutes before I fell asleep. And when it was about an hour and a half that I was enjoying this sleep to my satisfaction, then I felt suddenly that somebody was knocking the tree at the bottom, as if somebody is knocking a door. So I woke alert, or with fear, and when I bent downward and looked at the foot of this tree, there I saw a very short ghost who was not more than 3 feet high, but very corpulent. In other words, he was fat, as a pregnant woman who would deliver either today or tomorrow. He was waving his hand to me to come down to him. But as I was looking at him all the while, or for some minutes, then I saw clearly that he had one arm, both his legs were twisted as rope, and both feet faced sharply left and right. And he had an eye on his forehead, which was exactly like a moon. This eye was as big as a full moon and had a cover or socket which could be easily opening and closing at any time that he likes. No single hairs on his head, and it was sparkling as polished ebony furniture. When he noticed that I did not want to come down to him, then he raised the cover of the eye off, and at the very same moment, every part of this was as clear as daytime. And then I saw through this light that there were uncountable of the same kinds of these ghosts already surrounding the tree. All of them were waiting for me to come down to them. But as their attitude showed that they got ready to catch me, so by that I feared them. But after they waited for a few minutes and believed that I stayed on this tree for their dreadful appearance, then the whole of them came nearer to the tree and started to shake it with all their power. But when they nearly rooted out this tree, then I fell onto their hands unexpectedly. I noticed carefully at this stage that if they are breathing in, I would hear the cry of frogs, toads, pigs crying, the crowing of cocks, the noises of birds, and as if uncountable dogs are barking at the same time. And when they breathe out again, there would be another cry of fearful creatures as well. But as the whole of them seized me by violence or rape at the same time, then I began to beg them with a lower or cool voice, because I thought that they were going to eat me alive, and they did not listen to me until they took me to their town, which is the 9th town of ghosts. Having reached their town, they put me in a very dark room, which was under the ground, as such rooms are very common to the bush of ghosts. After a while, they changed me to a blind man, and then rubbed my body with their palms, which were sharp as sandpaper, and were slightly scraping me as dulled sandpaper. Having left that, they were cutting the flesh of my body with their sharp fingernails, which were long at about 4 inches. So I was crying bitterly for much pain. Again, after a little while, they left that, and then my eyes opened as before. But I saw nobody there with me in this doorless room who was ill-treating me like that. Immediately, my eyes opened. There I saw about 1,000 snakes, which almost covered me, although they did not attempt to bite me at all. It was in this doorless room, which is in underground, I first saw in my life that the biggest and longest among these snakes, which was acting as a director for the rest, vomited a kind of colored lights from his mouth onto the floor of this room. These lights shone to every part of the room and also to my eyes. And after all of the snakes saw me clearly through the lights, then they disappeared at once with the lights, and then the room became dark as before. After a few minutes later that these snakes disappeared, there I saw that this doorless room changed to a picture. And unexpectedly, I found myself inside this picture. And at the same moment, my neck was about 3 feet long and very thick. And again, my head was so big that my long neck was unable to carry it upright, right, as it was very stiff as a dried stick. Another 2 eyes, which were as big and round as a football, formed and appeared on this head. And both eyes could be easily turning anywhere that I liked to look or see. And I did not know where my normal eyes, which were on my head before, went. But as I was in this picture, then all of these ghosts were visible to me. And at the same time, all were knocking the head with sticks, but I had no hands to defend it because only my head and neck appeared out from the picture. After some minutes, they left knocking the big head, and I began to feel hunger, as if I had not eaten anything for a year. So when I could not bear this hunger, I started to cry out, I want to eat. And immediately I was saying, so there I saw on my front the foods I like most, or which was exactly the same kind as the kind that my mother was always cooking for me in my town before we left. But as it was on my front, my head could not reach it, as my neck could not bend anywhere as a dried stick. Of course, when I tried my best and overturned the pitcher, the head fell a little distant from this food instead of touching it. But as the neck was unable to bend or move, the head was also too big for the neck to lift up, I tried all my power to touch the food more than 30 minutes before my mouth could reach the food. And when I was about to start to eat it, my mouth changed again to the beak of a small bird unexpectedly. but the food was still in front with its good flavor. When this beat disturbed me eating the food, then I wanted to cry because I was feeling hunger as if I would die soon. But I cried out like a small bird instead of a man. And when all these ghosts that surrounded and looked at me as I was trying all the while to eat the food, heard my cry as a small bird's cry, all laughed at me at the same time. So after I tried all my efforts on everything and failed, then I was thinking in my mind that it is better for me to die now than to be in punishment like this. So immediately I finished these thoughts. The beat disappeared together with the food, and there was a mouth as usual, and without hesitation, I was moving together with the picture along the floor of this doorless room. But I saw nobody who was pushing me on, and also all these ghosts which surrounded me disappeared unnoticed. At last, I found myself where several roads meet together. The place was about 1/3 of a mile distant from their town, but all these roads were footpaths. After I moved to the center of these roads by an invisible mover, then I stopped. It was an open place, except a bush which spread on it. There I remained till the morning without seeing a single creature. When it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, all the ghosts and ghostesses with their children of that town came to me with 2 sheep and 2 goats, and also with some fowls. Having reached there, the first thing they did was that the whole of them surrounded me. Then all were singing, beating drums, clapping hands, ringing bells, and dancing around me for a few minutes before they killed all the domestic animals which they brought before me and poured the blood of these animals onto my head, which ran to the long neck and then into the pitcher in which the rest of my body was. After that, the flesh of these animals was cooked and put all near to touch my mouth, and I was easily eating it. So all these ghosts were coming every 3rd day and worshiping me there as their God. But the worst part of it was the bells which they were beating with big rods whenever they came, and when sounding, it would cause a headache. And again, the blood of all the animals pouring onto my head was also smelling very bad when rotten. They were spending about 4 hours with me whenever they were coming to worship me. So I did not feel hunger again as I was eating all the sacrifices they were bringing to me. Nobody would enter into the bush of ghosts without much trouble and severe punishment, because as I was repeatedly beaten by rain and scorched by the sun on the center of these roads, as I was unable to move myself anywhere, so at night the bush animals and other kinds of reptiles would come and stand before me, and then looking at me with great surprise for my fearful appearance. And if all of them looked at me for so many hours, then the boa would come to me and start to swallow my head, which appeared from the pitcher. It would disturb him from swallowing the whole of me or the pitcher. And when disturbed, then he would vomit me back out again. And I would not be allowed to sleep or rest for a minute throughout the nights because of the troubles given me by these bush animals. And if the day breaks again, all the sheep, goats, fowls, pigs, and dogs would come again from that town. All would stand and look at me with much astonishment, as I was curious and very dreadful to them, even to any person who might see me at this time. If these domestic animals look at me for some hours attentively, motionless, or crying once, then all the dogs who were among them would be barking at me and coming to me slowly until they would reach me, and then they would start to eat the remaining sacrifice, which I could not finish. And before they would finish that, the goats and sheep would come to me and start to kick me on the head, and I had no hands to drive them away. Again, all these dogs would be licking all the blood poured onto my head with their tongues. And as they were doing like this, all the ghosts would come again. And then all these domestic animals would run back to the town, so that by that I had no chance to sleep or rest, both day and night. Within a few months that I was at the center of these roads in the picture, news had reached every other town of ghosts in that area, and all of them were trying their best to steal me for their towns, as they thought that I am really a god. Yep, I told you this was an odyssey, didn't I? So it can get just a little bit odd as he goes from town to town. We'll pick up next week. We'll pick up next time. We'll pick up on River Ghost Gala Day under the river. Remember, we've got our Doc Ock Marathon coming up this weekend. Go ahead and subscribe. So when we get online, immediately you'll be notified that we're online doing the marathon. Marathon operates on Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 1. So from 12 to 1, we'll do a reprise of many of, if not all, of the live streams that we've done during the week. Whatever we can do in 1 hour, that's what we'll put up. And we'll do the adult ones, the noon ones on Saturday, and on Sunday, we do the ones that we usually do for the children at 9. And everything's going to be real fine. So our time is up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you're looking at us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're seeing us on Facebook, make sure to give us a like, give us a share, show somebody that you care. I see you over there, Clyde. How you been? All right. And Dennis, to you too. All right. Good looking out. We'll check back with y'all a little bit later. Remember to look for us at noon and 9. Doc Ock coming at you live at noon and 9. Peace out. Have a good weekend.